Okay, folks from around the world, thank you very much for joining us. This is Krishna Vedula from Indo-Universal Collaboration for Engineering Education. I'm based in Hyderabad, India. And this is a series of webinars jointly organized by the IFEES, International Federation of Engineering Education Societies, the Global Engineering Council, and IUCEE. So thank you all for joining us. We have another exciting webinar today, led by two of our presenters. One is Shannon O'Donnell from Siemens, the Global Engagement Team Leader. Siemens Digital Industries focuses on engaging learners, educators to create a more innovative, sustainable future through access to credentials, industrial and software, industrial-aligned learning resources, and an ecosystem of more than 1.5 million students at more than 4,000 institutions worldwide. Shannon serves on the Global Engineering Council, is immediate past chair of the College Industry Partnership Division of the ABET, and an advisory board for two schools. And she is joined by our friend from ABET, colleague from ABET, Jessica Silver, is both CFO and COO for ABET. As CFO, she is responsible for developing ABET's financial management strategy, budget development, forecasting, and the integrity of financial information. She is also responsible for monitoring investments of strategic reserves. So welcome, Stan and Jessica, and we look forward to your excellent webinar right now. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Krishna. We are really excited. So welcome everyone today, and thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about a topic that's top of mind for many of us as we look at the reality of our changing workforces, employer needs, and the educational landscape. That is how micro-credentials can best assess for quality assurance while addressing critical needs in our workforces. Yesterday, I joined the Perpetual Student Lifelong Learning for the New World webinar presented by the University World News and ABET. And it opened my eyes even more to the importance of quality assurance going into education, as well as the audiences of people who are taking advantage of this micro-credential expansion that's been happening. This webinar today will be online, as was the one yesterday, and will be on YouTube. So we'll be happy to share links when those are available. Today, we're here to bring our perspective and talk about the ways Siemens and our academic and industry partners are addressing issues through credentials and working in partnership with ABET to address this from a quality assurance perspective. I'm excited to have Jessica Silwick from ABET join us for our conversation today and share what amazing work ABET has been doing as we provide quality assurance to the credentialing world. As we get started, we have a quick question for you. And I'm going to go ahead and let me know if this advances. Okay, how are micro-credentials impacting your campus? So Raju started the conversation in the chat talking about what KSU is doing, excuse me. And as you're thinking about this and writing in the chat on what's happening with micro-credentials, think about your audiences. Think about if it's being embedded in your curriculum or if it's something being done outside of the curriculum. If there are ways that you're looking at this differently, if it's lecturers that are creating these courses, if it's faculty, looking for that kind of conversation and to impact the rest of today's call. And while that's happening and while you're writing that, Jessica, is there anything that you would like to add as we get started today?
I think you did an excellent job, Shannon, with the introduction and really describing why we're meeting today and the importance of the topic that we're going to be discussing. I think that we're finding more and more campuses and learners being impacted by micro-credentials, whether they're exploring, whether they're launching micro-credentials, and also some are still in the phase at which they're doing a needs analysis and finding out what would fit best for them and their learners within their programs. You know, I think there's phases to this, and, you know, there is the early adopters. There are the folks who are safe space adopters, and then there are late adopters. And I feel like at this moment in time, we are in the safe space adopters phase of micro-credentials. So I think it's just wonderful to see so many people embracing micro-credentials, at least investigating the potential for them, because we are seeing a much more drive and need for them, both from learners as well as industry.
Excellent, thank you. I see some people came off camera. We love seeing your faces. Please feel free to stay on, but I want to just check in and see, does anybody want to contribute to responding to this question, if that's why you had come off camera? Okay, no. So we're going to go ahead and continue. Thank you for putting that in, Bindu. Appreciate that, the flexible way to learn new skills. So micro-credentials are impacting campuses in so many ways. And when we look at what those needs are and the ways that they're being impacted, I wanted to give a little bit of a framework globally on what we're seeing. So these are just some highlights. On the webinar yesterday, we talked about how everyone still has their own definition of micro-credentials and that there have been some trends to come together. So as we're going today, I wanted to level set that we are seeing this tremendous need for quality assurance and are grateful that ABET has been piloting a couple of different initiatives. This slide highlights just a couple of ways these countries and regions are approaching micro-credentials. And I also thought it was interesting that while it's not written here, in Germany, they saw a 20% increase in the number of credentials being offered in less than 12 months. When you compare that to globally, that we're seeing 53%, we know that there's a need for quality assurance and a standard definition as we move forward. So today we're going to talk more about the why, the who, and the what, and go from there. Some quick quotes in terms of what we're seeing. Stephen McLaughlin from Georgia Tech: the world around us is changing rapidly, and we know we need to change with it to fulfill our educational mission. From here, we see that academia, what we're looking for from industry and vice versa, is a little bit unique, right? But we are seeing this emerging technology transforming the way classes need to be addressing AI, for example, in such a rapid format. And that demand is really shifting in industry as well. The skills gap matters so much because employees, if they don't have the skills they need to succeed, we know the organization won't be able to accomplish its mission, and employees won't thrive if they're staying. Jessica, anything else you would want to add here?
Just to say, yesterday I had the pleasure of serving on a panel with association executives when we were discussing leadership in associations in regards to artificial intelligence. And one of the topics that came up in that panel is that we've seen at least 4 industrial revolutions in history. And in every revolution that has occurred, there has been a very fast need for upskilling or reskilling of individuals. And I think that we are in this space now, and industry needs are evolving more rapidly than we can produce 2- and 4-year graduates. So that's where I think the universities are seeing now that in order to keep up with this rapidly changing, this current industrial revolution, in my opinion, that we are currently in, we're looking for solutions, and part of those solutions is the offering of micro-credentials to either upskill, reskill, or to really make sure that graduates are career ready when they're entering into the profession.
Thank you. The ability to upskill is critical, and I think one of the pieces of this that you have a really unique position in, Jessica, is being able to see this from the technology side. I'm going to share this information. So this was David Garza from Tec de Monterrey had said this, right? I see micro-credentials as an opportunity for many universities to make a greater impact, addressing exactly what you just said. What was interesting was there are over 200 micro-credentials being offered at Tech. When we were in the room with the faculty and asked them if micro-credentials are being offered at Tech, even the faculty were unaware of it. And that was something that was really impactful to me, to be able to see this is something where leaders know what's happening with these, but on an individual campus with so many faculty members, there was an opportunity for more upskilling, even on what micro-credentials are and what credentials are for their own community. So that was a really critical piece, because for Siemens, we're seeing micro-credentials as a capability to help us with recruitment costs, provide high quality talent pipelines, be able to provide a stronger knowledge and skill set that complement a traditional degree framework, and providing up-to-date expertise and access to this technology. So really fascinating to see. I loved being at Tech and seeing all the amazing work that they're doing there. Not all the faculty members in the room were from Tech. I just want to be very clear. There were people from other places as well. All right. So statistically, what does this mean? The strength of a job candidate with a college degree and a micro-credential, it truly impacts and makes an enormous preference for employers. From the Siemens perspective, it's been fascinating to talk with commercial customers, because a lot of them are unaware of micro-credentials, and it set up the need for being able to say, this is a quality program. This is something that is being assessed to prove that employees that are coming into an organization or that are working there are able to attain the skills that they need. From that focus, we then go into why it was that Siemens decided we were going to focus on micro-credentials, and an amazing opportunity where in June last year, we announced that Siemens is collaborating with ABET to pilot a review of programs. So Jessica, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for being there for that announcement, and for also being supportive of working together to look at how can industry and academia be able to work together to truly address what workforce challenges there are. So as we move forward, I was hoping, Jessica, that you could share a little bit more about ABET.
Sure, absolutely. So there's a lot on the screen in front of you about essentially who we are and why we exist. So ABET is a quality assurance agency serving higher education. Our goal is to assure quality education and the access thereof to learners globally. So we believe that the standards that we set and the quality assurance services that we provide allow society to have confidence in the professionals of the future, whose goal and aim it is to make the world a safer, more sustainable place. So it's been my absolute pleasure to serve this wonderful organization for the past 17 years in continuing to fulfill that mission. We are constantly seeking new ways to be innovative ourselves and to evolve to the changing needs of society and higher education. And as Shannon just announced, we partner with Siemens and 2 other organizations in testing our quality standards for the recognition of credentials, because we see this as the next space in which quality assurance is going to be essential. And if we did not address this need, we saw that as a gap in us being able to fulfill our service to society in assuring quality. So yeah, so I just want to give a little context as to who we are, where we are now, why we're having this webinar together. As you can see in the next slide, it shows that we increase an impact on the profession through those who are entering the workforce via credentialing. And as I just explained, that's a driver for which caused ABET to seek out quality assurance standards, and then to pilot with Siemens and others like Siemens in the testing of these quality standards to make sure that they're the best that they can be before we launch them to the market. We saw that, and we've received, the reason we even started to consider this is because we had individuals from industry as well as learners who were coming to us saying, the market is exploding at a rapid pace. It's overwhelming. We are not sure who to select either in the hiring of candidates, where to send our employees for upskilling, and as well as learners that were saying, I want to be able to enhance my degree through on-job training and experience of new tools and technology, but I don't know who to go or where I can go, that is actually going to deliver on the educational goals as promised. So ABET is now coming into the space to be able to say that if a offerer has gone through one of our reviews, we would apply our standards that are everything from administrative support to certificate educational goals, learner outcomes, and then of course it wouldn't be ABET unless we had an aspect of continuous quality improvement associated with that. I just want to say that if you are familiar with ABET accreditation, this is not that. It is an equally as valuable quality assurance service that we provide, but the standards are very different and the process is very different from what you would experience with an accreditation style review. So it's 3 years versus 6 years of recognition. So 3 years recognition for a certificate versus the 6-year accreditation of a program. And the way that we conduct the review is also different than what we would conduct a review for accreditation. But again, it wouldn't be ABET if it wasn't a peer-to-peer review done by volunteers who are passionate about what they do in ensuring quality education.
So Jessica, can you give a little bit of insight into what you've learned as you've been piloting this?
Oh, yes. So we've learned that this is a much more vast market than we imagined when we were going into it, that there are an array, a plethora of different credentials out there, and the naming of the credentials. Some of the credentials have the same outcomes, but the names would not indicate that otherwise. So really have done a really good job through our expert volunteers at ABET, as well as our staff, and kind of wrapping our arms around this space a little bit more tightly to get a better understanding of the market itself and all the different credentials that are out there. We also recognize that the need for quality assurance, we knew it was there, but then we realized it's a greater need than we had anticipated as well. So we saw the interest in the service that we providing was overwhelming. We had so many people that wanted to participate in our pilot. And if we had more time, we would have loved to embraced and welcomed all of them in it. But unfortunately, we didn't have the time to be able to do that. So I think really through this pilot, what ABET has learned is that it is essential for us to be in this space, and it is essential to have a quality assurance measure out there, really just for the safety of the learners, as well as the industry, as well as higher ed as well. We partnered with a higher education organization as well, a university, and we received fantastic feedback from them. So they told us that in participating in this pilot, they were making improvements and changes along the way as they were trying to show compliance to our standards. And they really felt like now they were entering into the market with a far superior product than the already fantastic one that they had prior to starting with our pilot. So again, it showed us that our standards not only were working for continuous improvement, it showed a partnering between the peer reviewers with the pilot participants, and then gave them a much greater level of confidence when they were ready to share their offering with the market. I think the same with Siemens, who was our one and only industry partner in this pilot. We chose Siemens because ABET and Siemens has a long history of collaborating in different spaces. They share our values that we share, in particular, commitment to quality and to making the world a better place. And we learned a lot about industry in working with Siemens and the very important role that industry plays in the offering of credentials and in the partnering with academia.
Thank you, Jessica. I can tell you that from talking with other commercial customers or commercial agencies, the ability to know that what we're doing is being assessed is making a difference in the way that they're even looking at what credentials future employees will have, that they're able to say, this has been ABET recognized potentially. And if we're able to say that, we can move forward with them. And so it helps their HR groups understand what exactly they're looking at, right? There are so many micro-credentials or credentials available online. So this really distinguishes what that offer is. So congratulations for all the work that you guys have done through these pilots. This will be incredible to see how this comes forward.
Well, congratulations
So I think
on your recognition as well.
Thank you. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, I think. Yeah, that's something that's very hot off the press. We have not announced that. So this is the first group to hear. Do you want to share a little bit about that, even though we'll talk about that in a minute?
Sure. I mean, I was just wanting to say congratulations.
Okay.
No, I can. Congratulations to Siemens for successfully, as a result of partnering with us in this pilot, we're able to demonstrate that several of their credentials do meet our quality standards and will be recognized as a result of going through this process and recognized as being a quality offer.
Thank you. We're thrilled to have been able to partner with you, and also from the learning perspective of what you mentioned, there was a lot that we learned going through the process. And I think as commercial customers, for you, it's definitely something that we hope to be able to provide that insight for others as well. So I think we've talked about this a lot, that we've got definite needs of the potential digital credentials to improve the way we're designing programs, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and Jessica, this next slide, you know Nelson fairly well. Would you like to comment towards this?
Sure. I just want to say Nelson's going to be a panelist at our ABET symposium next week to talk about lifelong learning. So we're very excited to have him as part of our annual symposium in San Diego next week. But the reason that he was selected or asked to honor us with being on the panel was due in part to comments like this that he has made over the years, and his commitment to evolving education to being the best that it can to really suit all sorts of learners and the phases that they're in their learning journey. So as you can see in the quote on the screen, you know, this is a moment for higher education to really think differently because of our society and the world. Society needs what you do. So educating learners is probably one of the most important jobs someone can do, is to offer someone the opportunity to learn and to continue to learn and to be the best version of themselves that they can be to serve society. And I think, as you know, as seen as this quote, as Nelson will say, we are at a phase in history to where things are rapidly evolving, and everyone needs to evolve as a result, just not higher education. But, you know, being part of the society as a whole, and a major part of society as a whole, it is a responsibility for higher education to recognize and understand that things are evolving, and that we need to evolve as a result to really be able to serve our learners and also society as a whole.
Thank you. And I will say the other thing that was interesting about his role and others we're seeing emerge are these deans of lifelong learning. I'm curious if anybody else has deans of lifelong learning on their campus, if you could just use one of the buttons and raise your hand. It's something that is an emerging role on campuses. So really fascinating to see that global mindset, that lifelong learning mindset, instead of just thinking we're here for 4 years or through PhD. So I just encourage looking for those positions. And if you have any in your schools right now, again, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand or putting that in the chat. Okay. All right. So Nelson and you both thinking about society, this becomes where I think there's a really interesting way of how micro-credentials are shifting into how things are being done in a curriculum or outside of a curriculum or as a part of a company. So thinking about integrating certifications with university degrees. This is something where we're seeing this happen at some universities in Michigan, where they're looking at how do we use micro-credentials to be able to have students' coursework come together. How do we use credentials to do this in a unique way? We know that students might have different ways that they want to study. How do we bring that together? So I just thought that's really a fascinating way of doing this. And what we're seeing is, from Siemens' perspective, you know, we say in education, you've got theory and application. Now you've got theory, application, and the real world. So that academic degree, that credential, and becoming workforce ready being critical at the center of that bridge. So co-developing comprehensive micro-credential curricula to blend academic knowledge and workplace practicalities is truly needed to help. We're going to talk a little bit about the first credential that Jessica mentioned that's being recognized by ABET. And so as we look at the how, we're going to talk more now about how the credentials represent a key solution to the challenges. And as we get started, we talked about how everybody has different ways of defining things. This is the way that Siemens is currently defining the use of a digital badge, a certificate, and a micro-credential. We really believe in the value of micro-credentials supporting learners as they transition from their degree programs into their careers. And for us, we're trying to connect the dots to bring our specific industry expertise alongside their academic knowledge to build an entire thread, from working with academic partners to supporting learners through credentials and enabling industry and customers to see that talent pipeline. And all of that is to say that's how we're doing it. But some of the research that I was doing in preparation for this, as well as other presentations, really looks at, when you're building a micro-credential, what are some of the programmatic considerations that you would be interested in looking at, to give you a little bit of a framework, really approaching it from a human and financial resources perspective. I think that's something that in it was probably 2007, I saw a university rapidly wrap up to do MOOCs, and then they rapidly closed because they hadn't thought about the human resources that they would need to be able to really scale what it was they were looking at. They had the finance, but not that human side. So joining those, the accreditation component of it, if a course needs to be accredited or doesn't need to be recognized, looking at that infrastructure, learner autonomy. This is something that's been really fascinating as we've been piloting different micro-credentials. We had one with a university where they had faculty members significantly involved with the students. Siemens would guest speak, but there was so much that was focused on still supporting those learners, and it wasn't a completely autonomous perspective on that. So looking at and seeing, what did we learn from not having autonomous learners to having other credentials that do have full autonomy? Looking at transferability, I think in this global world, what does this mean as we look globally? And Jessica, I'm going to put you on the spot with this particular question, I think. So for transferability, when we're talking about ABET recognition, how does that transfer, or does it, when we're talking about this?
It absolutely, has a big role to play, I believe, in transferability. I think that, one of the main goals of recognizing credentials is being able to say that this offer has a system in place and a curriculum in place and measures in place that validate that learners are obtaining the skills as promised as part of the earning of the credential. So, we through our research realize that there are some individuals who are going and earning credentials so that they can then go into different industries, or they can go into a different position at work, or they can start a career even. And in some cases, they were finding it challenging to be able to either enter into a market, get hired in a new position that they wanted, because the employers were still not certain, for lack of a better word, that the skills were actually obtained through the earning of that micro credential. So I think now ABET's going to come into this space, and we're going to be able to say that we are able to validate, or the offer was able to validate in compliance to our standards and through our review process, that their earners of these credentials are actually walking away with the knowledge and skills as advertised in the credential. So I think that will help. That helps a lot, and I think it provides a lot of autonomy for the learners, as they can actually now confidently walk into a new position, a new career, a new industry, and have that recognition from ABET to say, yes, here's some validation that I actually have these skills and meet the standards and are able to contribute.
That's great. Thank you. The government policy also, I thought, was really interesting when we were at IFEES and GEDC in Australia, having a conversation with a government official who said, well, we create our own micro credentials, but if ABET is recognizing it, that will help us be able to assess whether or not we should recognize it as a government. So it's really interesting to see how all of these come together from that perspective. And then industry standards, of course, right? Working with engineering, understanding these different standards are critical, and being able to align with those. So just some thoughts there on programmatic considerations if you're looking at building your own micro-credentials. So as we continue through, thinking through exactly what we were talking about, what are these stakeholder partnerships and how can they drive the certifications that people are looking for in their workforce? So we were talking earlier about recognition. This is a conversation now about what we have done as Siemens in partnership with University of Colorado Boulder. From a Siemens perspective, from a customer perspective, we know sustainability is critical in what engineers are doing. We partner a lot with Engineering for One Planet on panels. We hear about these different needs globally. This particular set of courses is set up so that Siemens and University of Colorado Boulder built a 9-course series that people will be able to go through. And the first of those 3 courses have been reviewed by ABET. So Jessica, during that review process of University of Colorado Boulder and Siemens, can you walk us through a little bit in terms of what happened during the review process as you were looking at the first 3 courses, as well as how the next 6 are going to be moving forward?
So a little bit about our process is we have volunteer peer reviewers who are trained by ABET on the quality standards. After they are trained and they take a test for understanding and can prove that they've obtained the skills and knowledge that were part of the training, they become a certificate evaluation reviewer. And then as a reviewer, they are assigned credentials to review, and then they make contact with the offers. So in this particular instance, our reviewers worked with individuals from Siemens, as well as in faculty from the University of Colorado Boulder. They went through the learning objectives of the certificate. They went through the creation and delivery of the certificate. So who's actually delivering it? Who's responsible for the upkeep of it? Who was responsible for the creation? And are they the same individuals who are also looking at this credential for continuous quality improvement? As I said, a lot of these are based on tech solutions, and we all know technology is evolving rapidly. So are you keeping up with those changes and making changes to your credential as necessary? So they worked with the offers, both at Siemens and at Colorado Boulder, to walk through our different review standards that we have. They communicated virtually. So review was all done virtually. So they communicated virtually and shared materials. So they really took a deep dive into this credential itself. And I think through the process, both the evaluators learned a lot about this particular offering and how it was managed, how it was created. The actual offers themselves, so Siemens and University of Colorado Boulder, also were able to take a deep dive into this offering and look for opportunities to make improvements to an already phenomenal credential. So I feel like the feedback we got from both the evaluators and the offers was that they both learned a lot as a result of this interaction with one another. And at the end of the day, felt really good about what they had done and a partnership. And excited for learners who would earn this recognition.
That's fantastic. I think one of the unique things for us was that this was a course that was designed around a digital mindset more than a digital skill set. So what that means to Siemens is that the digital mindset is, what do we need to know to operate in this engineering world versus how do I use the software that I'm learning? So from that perspective, it was a unique opportunity for us to look at the different skill sets from a professional and durable skill to be able to operate in this world. The other thing that was really interesting is that as industry is continuing to go through this digital transformation, we know that we need people who understand the world of automation and AI, but not just the understanding of what they are and what they do, but what the impact is going to have on organizations and industry as a whole and society. So we think about this a little bit different when we're working with the micro-credentials right now to provide a perspective that leads to approaches and behavior and working in ways that maybe in the past we wouldn't have done so much. So working through the ABET pilot has helped challenge some of the ways that we've traditionally approached that digital mindset, digital skill set balance. So as we're talking, I just also want to do a shout out to University of Colorado Boulder for being an absolute fantastic partner in working with us. And we look forward to doing more work together in the future. So that was great. Thank you for explaining that. Really appreciate it. So now that we are about 20 minutes out, let's talk a little bit about what's next. So we've talked about the different types of credentials and shared what Siemens and ABET are doing in the space. But now we want to share more about how you might be able to get involved or think about your own approach to micro-credentials where you're at. From an outcomes-based approach, really focused on employers, what are they looking for? Educators thinking about courses as enrichment for current curricula, and learners encouraging them to start adapting. I think we would all agree that 15 years ago, people still thought, I get my degree and I don't have to learn anymore. And that growth mindset really becomes apparent and necessary when students are in undergrad so that they know this is something that will be normal. I think back to a part of my political science degree where we had to read the newspaper every day, no matter what course you were in, and that impact that made in terms of training us. Or when I was working on research projects, learning how to read an abstract to be able to find what are some of the highlights and be able to move in faster to understand what I was reading overall. These are skills that you're teaching them in undergrad that are going to last them a lifetime. So I just really encourage you to think about how you can do that and how you can provide them with digital badges that provide them with that proof to be able to say, hey, I've learned these skills, and this shows that I'm somebody that's willing to take a growth mindset. Thinking about it from industry alignment, a lot of schools have industry advisory boards. I don't think I've really met an industry company that has not been involved in some board somewhere, and all of the universities that I've been in touch with have had these advisory boards. I'd encourage you to ask more challenging questions about what it is that not only what do they need to get out of the curriculum, but what is it that they need when they enter the workforce 5 or 10 years later? Start doing a little bit of that analysis for yourselves to be able to see how does the program need to continue to evolve. The other thing that I'll share here, when we've talked with other industry professionals, they've also encouraged and said, look, as an industry, we need to be able to create this because this isn't something that a student needs to learn when they're in school. So what are some of the ways to be able to support those educators and industry partnerships? Would also be, how is it that you could maybe support them in creating their own learning processes? Thinking of Jessica and the new micro-credentials being recognized, maybe there's an opportunity there for different types of partnership. When we present in-house, all of us on our team have a lot of experience in higher education and education. When I go to somebody that's in the sales organization and I say, well, these are the learning outcomes, they don't know what learning outcomes are. So being able to really set up, this is how we approach education and some of the value propositions. And then finally, thinking about degree or career integration, how you're bringing this together, whether it's a badge. I saw, Bindu, that you mentioned that you have these different software components in there. At Siemens, we create customized badges for the universities that are working with us for the software as well as digital mindset components. So looking for what are ways that we can do that to make it so that people are more recruitable when they graduate, because we're trying to teach our commercial side of the business. These are the credentials that people have. Here's where you go to recruit them, and how do you find them to make that recruiting process even more seamless. And finally, I said on here, encourage people to create a Credly profile or LinkedIn, either one of those. If you're in China, I know LinkedIn is not the preferred source. So whatever the source is that you're using now for recruiting, but those profiles, whether they're a first year or a second year student or graduating, they make a difference. And the more that they start learning and interacting on their early side, the better off that they will be. So just some thoughts on how to leverage micro-credentials in the way that you're building out your courses and thinking about different pieces of it. Jessica, is there any other piece that you would encourage and contribute on this? I'm sure there is.
Yes. Yeah. I want to say that, like, as you mentioned, almost all institutions and or programs have a very robust alignment with industry. So they seek out information from industry, and as well as they share information with industry to really to ensure that they have the program and the curriculum in place that's really going to assist their learners in being able to enter into the professions. So I think that part of leveraging micro-credentials is just another step in leveraging that relationship with industry and maybe enhancing it a little bit more to really fit industry's needs as well as your learners' needs. I think another topic that people don't talk about as much with leveraging micro-credentials is that in many countries around the world, the demographics of our students and our learners is changing. A lot of first generation learners, a lot of learners who are not entering into academia through the traditional means, maybe their application, their pedigree, all of that looks different now. And I think that providing the opportunity for learners like this to have access to micro-credentials, some micro-credentials lead to matriculation into academic programs, which creates new learners and new students and more people entering into the professions. So I think that, micro-credentials is also an opportunity to create a pathway to a non-traditional learner. Maybe they're going to go and get a micro-credential so they can have a career and be able to afford an education, or maybe it's a pathway because they're not going to be able to be admitted through the traditional application process because of their background or their history with education. So I think that that's one part too, that it opens up opportunities. So I see micro-credentials as a pathway and a way to open up opportunities, as well as to get the students in. Again, some of us are also experiencing a shortage of learners just due to demographics of society and population statistics. I also believe that, I was speaking to some individuals from Latin American countries where they're really taking a really deep dive, deep look into their curriculum. And some are going, saying, we can't do 5-year programs like we've done. The students need to, we need to have them done in 4 years and get out and to meet industry needs. But how do we do that? So some of them are looking at the changes of their curriculum from a 5-year to a 4-year and saying, we can still feel satisfied if we were able to offer micro-credentials to kind of now subsidize the fact that our curriculum was based off of 5 years and now we're going to 4 years. So I think, that's just one example. I don't have an opinion either way as to whether or not that's the right approach. It sounds right to me, but, of how micro-credentials can also be an innovator as well, and a catalyst for change as well. So a lot of opportunities in leveraging micro-credentials in various ways in which they're going to suit your particular needs on your campus in addressing the needs of your learners in society.
Innovative education. I think that's the theme from what you were sharing.
Yes.
The University of Colorado, when they built the micro-credential that we're talking about for sustainability, it is a matriculation, has that capability where students that are coming in, and we are encouraging a lot of our students that are competing in our design challenges to do at least the circular economy course initially. They're going in and coming out of that having learned so much. But the other thing is if they decide to go for a master's in sustainable management, then University of Colorado will accept that with one more level of assessment that the students need to take. So it does really provide that framework for introduction into a campus also, which is fantastic. Excellent. Well, as we wrap up, we are going to ask you if there are any questions that you have. But as we're doing this, if you have any interest in talking with Jessica or the team more from ABET, this is the QR code that you need, and we will be providing these slides, so you'll have access to this at that point. And additionally, we do want to point out that if you're using these 2 QR codes, the recruitable candidates will take you to the Credly Talent Directory, and you can see the different badges that are there, as well as this is where we're referring our commercial customers to. And then looking at strong industry knowledge relating back to Coursera to see the different certifications that exist from Siemens. So with that said, I do want to take the time. Thank you all for taking the time today to be a part of this webinar. As we wrap up, let's just end on if there are any questions.
Yes, we're open for questions, folks. You can either raise your hand and recognize you, or you can just start talking. Put in the chat and we'll respond, okay? I can start with a question myself, because I'm in the space now in India after several years in the US. And I'm seeing that a lot of colleges that I'm working with, about 100 or so colleges, are in a position to try to think about offering micro-credentials in different areas. Now, on the one hand, are there a lot of people developing new micro-credentials that can be accredited around the world that we can offer to our students?
There are a lot of micro-credentials for different degrees and different disciplines. One of the things that you'll notice is if you do searches, thinking of India and the amount of computer science and coding, there are so many courses. And when we first started talking with academia about the impact of credentials, people were saying, well, engineering students have a packed curriculum. They don't have enough time for this. And then my follow-up question would be, do you have any students that have learned coding outside of the degree? Well, we have. How did they do that? Well, they went online and they took these credentials. So we're seeing that even if it's not a traditional perspective, that students are going and seeking this, and that there are a lot of different credentials that are available and micro-credentials coming up.
Okay.
I know we're working on quite a few right now too. So yeah.
Okay, great. I guess we can go on the
That's a
website
great question.
and try to find them. I guess you can go on the website and try to find them. And
If you go to Coursera, I'll put it in the
Yeah.
chat, coursera.com.
Yeah.
That's probably the
That's a good
largest
source.
that we've found. Yeah.
Okay, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If there's any particular topics at some point, though, please reach out.
Other comments, questions, folks?
The comment, Davinia, thank you for putting this in about the Philippines offering a new specialized Center for Engineering Education credential there at your school. That's fantastic. Also seeing that the government released a national guideline on micro-credentials. So wow, that is really impressive. I would love to learn more about what you're doing with that. Congratulations. I always thought it would be interesting if there was a micro-credential for PhD graduates on teaching. So maybe that's what this is there. Huh. Ah, great. Okay, question. Are all the courses online, or do you partner with some to offer in-person classes? We have partnered with some that do in-person or hybrid. Given the expertise that we have is located all over the world, we prefer to do more online for that particular reason. We're able to offer more expertise and be able to scale it a little bit differently, but it's still something, at least at Siemens, that we're considering and that we've done throughout the pilot phase. So great question about that, though. Would love to understand more about what the value is in terms of offering in-person classes and what that could look like. Maybe that's a part of another discussion that we lead. Thank you for asking. This one's for you, Jessica. Is there somewhere to see the guidelines ABET has created for micro-credentials?
Yes, I would encourage you to use the QR code that was, and we can send that out after this meeting. And if you give us your contact information and ask for, there's a comment box there, you can ask to see the standards and we'd be happy to share them. Since we just completed the pilot phase and we are hoping, well, we are going to launch this service in the fall of 2025. So this coming fall, we'll launch it. So as such, we're currently working on the web page that would, it's where I wish I could give you the link to the web page that has all the information on that, but it's still in development. But that being said, I'm happy to share the standards with whoever would want to see them sooner rather than later. So if you use this QR code and as well as asking to see the standards, any other questions that you may have or requests that you may have, you can submit all of them through this expression of interest form. And then we also, if you do fill out the expression of interest form, we will also share with you when the web page has been launched.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question about, will Siemens be giving industry design courses? I would say that industry is playing a very large role in the way that we're approaching our courses as a whole in the credential space. We'll see about other things, but yes, there is something that we are working on that's designed for industry, by industry, that's really designed to meet the needs of industry. So it'll be something that you'll see coming shortly. If you're interested in learning more about that or looking to pilot it, we are looking for piloters right now. There are a couple of schools piloting in one area, but we are looking for more of a global pilot. We have a couple of schools in India in Mexico and Germany that will be the next on to pilot what we're talking about. But I can't speak about it publicly at this time. If you're at ASCE, you'll hear about it more then. Yeah. Does Siemens help to create customized courses? We would be more than happy to have a conversation to see if that's something that we can support. Interesting question. What do you suggest about credit system? Should it be based on the number of hours? Oh, I have some really unique thoughts on that maybe, but Jessica is more of the person that's going to be able to speak to that.
I think from a traditional sense, yes. But in this space, there is flexibility to investigate the ability to base it off of more so the skill set that's attained through the credential. And that would be, I guess, the value that would play into the program that these credit hours would go towards. So, you know, it's I think that from a traditional standpoint, I'm going to say yes, based on the hours. But I think that in this new space, I would encourage looking into innovating how you apply the credits from the micro-credentials, but it has to be in a way that suits your educational needs within your institution and within that program that the credits are going to be applied.
I'm going to add to this and just say, I think this space also gives us more of a capability for people to do an assessment to see what previous knowledge they have entering different courses. And so maybe that time might be shifting based off of the experience level of someone taking a credential. If they can go through things quickly, or if it's going to take a little bit more time to build that skill set up. With adaptive learning, it's a really unique conversation. Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, I think I'm going to let Hans do the wrapping up. Hans, come in, Hans.
Well, thank you very much. I'm genuinely inspired, Shannon, by your incredible facilitation and thoughtful presentation, and working so closely with Jessica, and the partnership, not only institutionally, formally, that as you have built the Siemens community, and with ABET, and it's just beautifully expressed here. So I really genuinely want to thank both of you, wonderful colleagues. I'm very happy, deeply value, appreciate your continued support and partnership with the IFEES and GEDC community at a global level. And as you know, Krishna and I have been working very closely together for years, and we're very happy to sponsor, to facilitate, and to see the kind of engagement and serious professionalism that you're contributing to this community. I'm very, very grateful. I do want to make a couple of comments to many of the people there listed here, participants that who I do not know. And it's the first time that I see their names. I'm very, very happy, and we are always continuing to increase the participants in our webinar series from throughout the world, and it's a wonderful task. One of the things that comes to mind, I just came from South Korea. We are hosting our global IFEES conference this September at DGEST in the southern part, Daegu, of South Korea. We had our previous global conference in 2016 in Seoul, and coming back now after 9 years to that very special, fascinating country, and it was beautiful to be there. But one of the things that we're in the discussions, and also in DGEST and the leadership, the president and dean and others, I think this issue of micro-credentials could be a potential topic also for you to consider, Shannon, to talk with Dora, also possibly to suggest in our conference this coming September in South Korea. I want to invite all of you, get in touch with me, any information that we can share with you to motivate you to join us. they're very interested to build relationships. And I'm very happy to, for example, facilitate a relationship with several universities, with DGEST. It's a young university, brilliant space of only about 20 years. And so I'd like you to give serious consideration to join us this September in that part of South Korea. And then a final comment, again, working very closely with many of IFEES and GEDC members, will be at the ASCE conference in Montreal in Canada this June. And again, we will have a session and several long session in which I've invited and they have accepted to participate in our 3.5-hour session, both IFEES and GEDC members, on several topics, AI, and without going into details. And then that same evening, I've been hosting a reception dinner that evening during that time on Sunday, June 27th. Many of you that have not come yet to these ASCE annual meetings, we have been there for many years. So again, I want to ask you, get in touch with me, with us, and hopefully join us both in South Korea this coming September, and certainly also in Montreal at that time. And again, both you, Shannon, and Jessica, thank you for your very, very thoughtful presentation today. Very meaningful.
Thank you,
And
and for all of you who joined from other parts of the world. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you are. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Peace be
you.
with you.
Take care.